Stuff I'm sure is that, I mean, it's part of the gig, but at the same time I sort of
It's nice to be professional right out of the gate.
yeah, right, exactly, yeah, that you
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you.
never question your live stream,
what
always
you're
assume
doing
you are.
And listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Well, welcome to the show and welcome to the weekend and the part of the week that everyone is working for, apparently, according to Loverboy, which had we only listened to them, we would have been in such better shape. They're, you know,
They weren't wrong.
No, they weren't wrong, quite frankly. And there's an area, and I want to welcome everybody, by the way, to not only the show on the radio, but also the live stream at infoteamwars.com, and of course, streaming at twitch.tv/HalSparks, where Johnny Million also has parked his musical RV on the Twitch machine. He's at twitch.tv/it's Johnny Million when he does that thing that he does so well. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
Wednesday, Friday.
And Central Time, right? Because, yeah,
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Central Time. It's like 3:45 in there. Usually go for an hour.
Yeah,
kind of a lead up to your show.
You're such a Uber Z kid, you know, laziness with your hanging out, and I'll just have a schedule when I want it, you know. Meanwhile, here I am. I'm, you know,
whenever.
part of
Busting your hump.
I'm part of I guess the Generate 1800s. Anyways, I'm part of them. It's been so long we've forgotten the name of our generation.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and I have to schedule everything like an old fogey. It's terrible. Now, there's a lot to cover this week, not the least of which is that it seems, you know, after with Donald Trump focusing on like most of his ire, if he had to pick a single member of the Senate or the Congress or anybody to go after, it isn't a Democrat. It's always Mitch McConnell. Like there are plenty, well, because I guess Mitch McConnell had power and didn't use it directly to Trump the man at a couple of points. Yeah. And he used that power to directly benefit Republican donors and Republican politicians and their re-election chances, and he prioritized the party over the person. And you don't do that in Trump world. You can't.
You just don't know, because it's always it's loyalty unless it's him.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And again, if you are loyal to him, you are disloyal. You lack the character of being loyal to this awful person. And the irony of it is, and I don't think it's lost on anyone, is that the only real legislative and I guess judicial wins specifically that he had any true merit, because obviously the wall was a complete failure. Apparently the border was never this bad, according to them, even during Obama. So I blame the wall. Secondly, because I guess it looks like with a sense. I mean, whatever. The tax cut, which he's always touting,
Sure.
that was on Mitch McConnell's desk for years. They didn't grab a great idea that Trump had. Trump didn't rework the tax code. He didn't. There was no scene from Dave where he called in. Remember the movie Dave with Kevin. Okay.
Unreasonably good.
Wonderful. And he brings in his buddy, who's his accountant, and has him go over the books. He says, go over the budget. And he goes, if anybody else, any business, what they would go out of business if they ran their business. Well, yeah, but you see, a company can fire their employees, and a government can't fire the poor, as much as the Republicans might try. So the analogy one-to-one company or household to government budget is a totally different thing, and that's another conversation for another time. But an adorable moment, nonetheless. And then, but Trump ran on this idea that we have things. I know all the smart people. When I get in there, I'm going to call up the smartest business people in the world, because I have them all on speed dial calls, and they all think I'm a creep and won't let me anywhere near their wives. But that doesn't matter. They'll put that aside for patriotism. They'll come down to the White House and help me do my homework, which is essentially what it is. It's like I can ace the. See, I was put next door to do my math homework for me. I got this scientist cretin down the hall. I'll throw some cash his way. I'll get all these people to do work, and trust me, it's gonna. How do you know? You can't read it. Because I'll leave their name on it. Except I won't. And in this particular case, the same thing is sort of true of his tax break, which he calls the tax break in American history, which it isn't. And it was a permanent tax cut for businesses, and it was temporary for individuals. So even it was effectively buying a tax reprieve for Republican donors and going, hey, I'll give you you can shave a little bit off your taxes for a couple of years and stuff. We'll have to probably put it back or whatever.
It sounds so dirty when you say that.
Well, it's what it is. So, and then the other one, of course, manscaping. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and pardon me if I'm walking funny. I cut myself shaving. The important thing, though, big line when I don't know how the crowd is on the stand-up set. That's true.
Yeah, you gotta.
They are
on your way in there. It's like, how dirty can I get? Okay, that dirty.
Right. That's the needle, right? That's the green sweet spot where the oil pressure sits. So, the other one, of course, was the Supreme Court. If not for Mitch McConnell running interference for Donald Trump, denying Merrick Garland a seat, and then guaranteeing a couple of other seats, essentially, and holding up and saying effectively that if it was an Democrats had won and it was up to us to push through one of theirs because they won and it was next year, like, no way, we're going to crowbar one of our own in at the last second. This is one-sided. This is not about, it's only fair. I mean, we just won an election, so they shouldn't be able to appoint blah, blah, blah. No, okay. And so Mitch McConnell secured the 3 seats that Trump added to the Supreme Court. Specifically, and the hinge point, because Merrick Garland had been on there, the division of this court would not have been so that a lot of what Trump wanted to get done would have gone through. So there is no Trump presidency. There is no, he makes stuff up. He always pats himself on the back. He's always exaggerating his wins. It's part of
I heard that in 2 weeks, something big is coming.
Yes. every 2 weeks and never. That the fact that he hates on Mitch McConnell is one of the biggest embarrassments of his political standpoint. I mean, his face and his demeanor and his attitude and his suggestion that, you pour bleach in people's lungs and put a light bulb up their rectum and shine COVID away, just shine it away. Or his whole idea that, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are, quote, top of their game from central casting. Nobody could play them in a movie because they're the perfect human. Blah, blah. This weird PR goes on, but only for our direct and most vociferous adversaries. And I guess occasionally an ally, they kissed his keister significantly at some point.
And for a moment.
Right. So a there's a wonderful irony to how it turns out, I suppose, the art of the deal, if there is a business book that is the opposite of how to win friends, influence people.
It's a philosophy of business.
That's right.
Open the book and do the opposite thing there.
That's right. And as even with every possible privileged head start in every circumstance, dad building a mobbed up real estate empire in New York instead of Chicago, instead of Los Angeles, instead of Seattle. Just birth circumstance in terms of where his dad's business. And that was, by the way, not an accident. On a mobbed up real estate, you're going to do it out of York, possibly Miami, maybe Houston these days, but back then that was it. And then for Trump himself to, born on third base, saying that he hit a Hummer, which is whatever, his whole life, and then having to borrow from his brother and sister's inheritance from his father just to keep the failed business after failed business after. One of the things that you would think would be one of the lessons he could kind of start to grasp after seeing how badly it has affected his chances of running, I mean, this flailing campaign that he's passing off right now, any of this, like, it's so bad right now. He sees his polls. He's saying to other people about being way ahead. He ain't. And he's losing independence. And to compete for the voters that Trump has, DeSantis is signing bills basically zeroing out the right to choose for women in Florida entirely, but doing it after midnight and then not talking about it the next day. Doing it, this is not a sign that you are doing something that will help you in the general. As a matter of fact, you recognize that this is one of the biggest, like, throw a bone to the absolute activist class, pretending you're going to do that once you're president and then play general the rest of the time. That is exactly what DeSantis is doing to try and win over what's left of the maggots that are sort of still following Trump around, that need to jump ship onto somebody that is equally full of it. This whole thing, like with having Kavanaugh and the push towards eliminating a woman's right to choose, that DeSantis is chasing outright. It's almost a series of explosions of the Republican Party, in that it's blowing up certain pillars in sequence. And in one of the particular areas is, of course, this idea that DeSantis is not even able to talk about this, and that women voters came out en masse because of the midterms and said absolutely not. And the changes in the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, the reaction resoundingly from all Democrats and a huge majority of independents, and even 51% of Republicans towards this kind of behavior, setting them up for a fail, and yet they are still chasing it. And so that is going to lead. Yep, that is going to lead them towards a terrible mess in the general election and through the primary season next time. A mess of their own making, an unforced error that nobody but the craziest people asked for. Meanwhile, you thought you could just rely on the old-fashioned Republican side of the Supreme Court, I suppose, all this time. And then here comes Clarence Thomas to just, it wasn't enough that his wife is an absolute lunatic, that she is the Roseanne Barr of Gary Busey's on a bad stash.
And somehow, like, people have just been going, well, I guess that's going to happen. I guess that's just how it's going to be.
Here's the thing. That is true. The wives and children of politicians or Supreme Court justices, I don't think we can do any kind of, I'm not into any rules on their behavior. That's the tough part of being in a free democracy. However, that everybody thought that was going to be what took him down. Him telling her things, she telling other people things. And it turns out it's even worse. We'll be back right after this. We got to take a break because there's never going to be enough popcorn for 2023. And Clarence Thomas is going to be, this year, is going to be the gift that keeps on giving that the Republicans wish would have just stayed under the tree. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's like, Johnny has a new mic. He has a mic. You've been using that one for a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, it's probably more prominent because I found that I was like leaning down into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably more visible.
It's true. It is definitely more visible.
I tried using like a condenser one, but the dynamic mic just works better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it certainly is easier. Yeah.
It is, and I'm used to talking in these because it's what I always talk into on stage and everything, so I know how it works.
Yes. You know your distance. I have my two settings for singing when I'm singing on stage. which is length of the fingers here for high and blow away notes, and thumb distance.
That comes in handy elsewhere too.
Does it? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have to use 2 hands, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
Sure.
Hey now.
Hold on.
You like my Spidey shirt?
I do indeed. Do you like my completely generic gray shirt that I for some reason or whatever just it's wrinkly material. I don't know what the heck it wears well.
It doesn't look wrinkly to me.
It's if I relax at all. But it's good. It's a posture shirt.
We're coming back.
There you go. There you go.
Attention. Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Okay, so this unfolding Clarence Thomas drama, which, last year before last, everybody was talking about Ginny Thomas's involvement in January 6th and possibly paying for buses that brought armed Jan 6ers to the Capitol. One would think that in and of itself would have unpacked, in any other normal period in human history, would have unpacked into an insane, year-long trial that, captivated a nation. And it just kind of didn't. Just kind of shrugged it off. It just kind of went, yeah, he's married. She's kind of a loony QAnon. I don't know, whatever. She got a lot of free time, She does potluck things at Proud Boys stuff. I don't know, whatever. It's amazing how much craziness around Ginny Thomas we have just shrugged off because we've been dealing with bigger issues. You know what I mean? It's you know, well, I'm going to get into a horrible. I'm going to paint myself into an analogy corner if we even go down this road. But in this particular case, the fascinating part of this whole Harlan Crow story. Now, if you're not familiar now, there's a man by the name of Harlan Crow. Yeah, he's a Club for Growth fella. He's a long-term Republican donor here, to see. And one thing I'll tell you, he likes the shine of that lovely Clarence Thomas and his lovely wife Ginny. They're a lovely couple. Can't vacation without them. They're just wonderful to have around. Wonderful stories of how to make lots of money by a change in the tax code that they will punch down. Other things where they'll guarantee that my corporation and I are twins, conjoined at the colon. You understand? Because we are clearly
complicated
being people, as it were. Yes, I view myself as sort of a human centipede. My business, and me, my business, and me. Now, so I, over the years, have given him $500,000 trips almost yearly for decades with no expectation of anything in return. It's just my neighborly nature, you understand? It has come to light.
A real cat found that. I don't know if it's going to roll up for you, but I see the tail. I see all of it.
Very impressive. Oh, I see, like in the chat, like drawn out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very, very impressive.
Oh, and E-Ren found it too.
Now, Harlan Crow also turns out purchased Clarence Thomas's mother's 2 properties that his family owned down the street and a couple across the street, because it was why collect all 5 cheap properties across the street, basically so he could fix those up and raise the value of the property overall, because he's going to preserve the childhood home of America's second black Supreme Court justice as a historical place, as opposed to just buying his mother's home and paying for, so he could pay for all the renovations under the table, build his mother. And then, by the way, at some point, if we're never caught, I'll just give it back to you for $1. I learned that trick from a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's, don't you know? And so it turns out that this dude, Harlan Crow, has been feathering the nest of Clarence Thomas for decades. And Clarence Thomas has lied on financial disclosures. There is one thing to say that he went on these trips and there was no money that changed hands, but the enormity of the creature comforts that I've afforded on his gentleman and his wife were enormous, I would say. That the trips themselves...
Right. What was like the multiple reported salary is compared to his normal earnings compared to the price of those trips? It was like it dwarfed it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And on top of that, the idea that he is and the ability to buy, this is another thing. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but the idea that you can buy property in this country under within the structure of an LLC, and you can hide who you are or where indeed that money comes from, turns places like New York and other cities throughout the country, and we're not the only advance full of hidden CCP money. They know this. They're trying to extricate it. There's this slow brooming that's going to take probably a decade to really root out, but it's been going on for a very long time. So the idea that we now have to go back and look at, indeed, who does own the mortgage on the home that the Thomases live in currently, or other properties that they might have invested in. Who's the co-owner in their LLCs? Do they have any mass stuff? That's the kind of, because they're willing to hide this kind of stuff and shrug it off, and they have it. We're talking about a house that I think that guy purchased for somewhere in the order of $140,000 and then put in $100,000 worth of renovations, and all by the way, while Thomas's mother, I believe, still lived there.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, that would be the issue. It's one thing like she's moving out, putting mom in a home, and we want to sell the house, and he bought the home for triple market value, kind of like Trump's house that in for whatever $5 million or $3 million in Florida and sold to that Russian dude for $90 million. Remember that? That flood of money that he got, and the guy just leveled it. Like he didn't. What a deal! This piece of property was, an original. I don't know. Holland Crow's grandfather lived here for a week and a half and used the outhouse on the regular. It wasn't a lot of dollars, and then flattened it. The land itself isn't worth anywhere near that, and so obviously Hinkie still doesn't get enough attention. Again, one of those scandals that in a normal era would be out the story of the year and end a career. But there are so many of them with Trump that it becomes like a gish gallop of crime. Mm-hmm. You're on to the next one before you even get a chance to address the last one. I would argue that Ginny Thomas ultimately is responsible for the circumstance that Clarence Thomas finds himself in. Because while they might be afraid to lay scrutiny on Clarence Thomas, or heretofore have been afraid to do so, because Ginny Thomas was so wrapped up in January 6th and financially by financing some of this stuff, a lot of people suddenly got on the Ginny Thomas beat.
Yeah.
Who's she hanging out with? That's right. Who's she hanging out with and why? Where are they going? And then when you talk about foreign influence in American elections and in the American judicial system as well, because I hate to think that they would just do this simply just to throw an election one direction and trust that, a screw up like Donald Trump will somehow do everything he's, he'll be able to throw a switch and you're going to have to fill the judiciary as well if you're messing around with things proper. So people are going to start going, all right, well, if it was Hinkie when, I don't know, Rudy Giuliani went to Italy to meet with Russians and came, and magically came with the Hunter Biden hard drive, named laptop. Isn't it a bit odd that Clarence and Ginny Thomas vacation in these parts of the world on yachts with these, that this billion, God knows who, for God knows how long.
Yep.
And completely hidden from the public. Part of it under the illusion that it's for their own security. Because it absolutely is. It's an American Supreme Court justice. Their life is constantly in danger because of so much that hangs in the balance. You just talk about like business rulings, and we can think of several different people over the course of American history that would gladly get rid of, if they could do it easily, a Supreme Court justice via a car wreck, a sinking ship, a plane that goes down, what have you, to save themselves billions of dollars or the like, right? And so security has always been necessary for Supreme Court justices, absolutely, and the political turmoil that it throws in. But it can also be used as a mask. It can also be used as a reason, well, you can't know where they are and you can't know who they're talking to because that endangers them, and they could be, they could hold someone for ransom that the justice cares about and therefore affect their ruling and that all of these things are true, but can be weaponized. But in this particular case, it would not surprise me. Part of the election cycle next year would be about Biden is getting a chance to add someone to the court because Clarence Thomas is forced to resign because of this stuff. Will he go quietly? No. But will it get so bad at some point avoid it, or the rest of the court needs him to go to keep eyes off of them? That's a very distinct possibility. Yep. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Present more Johnny Million. And, of course, Philip Ittner will be joining us at the hour, at the bottom of the hour, top of the next one, whatever that radio speak is, to discuss what's going on in Ukraine this week. And a lot has happened. We'll be back.
So much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to do some testing.
Oh, look at this. All right.
It's happening. Oh, my God.
Oh,
right at me.
Good. Yep.
Yes?
Yep. I hear a long dangly reverb.
That's a lot of reverb. Yeah, I like that.
Delay. Yep.
That's more than I need. Just right. Oh, this isn't break music, Captain Cheeto, but you guys all do need to come check out my Twitch. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometime around 3:45 Central.
You absolute prostitute.
But if you do it, if you follow me, you know, you get the announcements, which usually say the wrong thing, because I'm still figuring out how this works.
That's
usually
man, I went
day
through the whole
old.
thing.
God.
Yeah.
And I've got, let me see, I think I've got a track to play. Just gonna, okay, sounds like that.
Coming back.
That sound okay?
It sounded great. And I
Okay,
think we're
good.
back. I think you brought us in. Chicago,
What?
are we back? Because I think he did. I think
No, he
did
said
in fact.
20.
No,
Oh, he did?
not yet. 5 seconds.
Okay, all right, cool. I was like,
All right, now I'm bringing us back.
That would have been so smooth.
Would have been. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yep.
5 seconds. I do not Chicago, though.
Nope.
Welcome back to the
Oh,
House
there's
Sparks
Chicago.
Radio Program. Mega worldwide.
Look at that, Johnny Million. Go for it. You know, this is the perfect music. Play in the background. I don't know why you're breaking wind during this. Is that just...
It's how the stream sounds.
So Johnny's Monday, Wednesday, Friday streaming on Twitch. And he's very good at it.
Yo.
I'm just going to say, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a good time. And at some point we're going to figure out some, I'm going to be in Chicago and we're going to play
That'd be
together.
delightful.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. Now,
And people have the ability to interrupt the audio of my stream with various sound effects.
I
and,
see. Yes. Right.
And
you
so
said
that's why it's usually a panic. Yeah.
No. I didn't set. I know how to set that up. I will not do it. That's it.
Oh, it's fabulous. And actually, people can interrupt me with like Freebird will just jump in the middle of whatever I'm doing, and I have to stop the song I'm playing
and
play
Freebird.
the Freebird solo.
You're right. Okay. I figured you have to do the whole thing. All right. This is a piece of good news, and I will set aside that the Clarence Thomas thing is going to be an ongoing problem. There's gum all over the floor of the Republican side of the aisle for the next year. Everywhere they step, it's like, man, it's bad. But you've been following Johnny Million. You saw the Eric Murdoch trial thing, right? The family, all those awfuls. Okay, there is
a friend. I actually have a friend who lives in South Carolina, and maybe 8 months ago, and we're both true crime nerds. She's like, have you heard of the Murdoch family yet?
Yeah.
I was like, no. She's like, go give it a goog. And like all the podcasts sounded really bad.
Give it a goog.
Give it a goog.
You're so hip.
I'm so hip. I'm so Gen Z. I'm Gen Alpha, baby.
Right.
They like the podcasts were really poorly produced and stuff. Like it had no traction. Nobody cared except like some very local South Carolina. And then all of a sudden I was like, hang on a second.
Well, you know how sometimes You know how like Law and Order will take a real story that's in the news and then they'll do a version of it every time. They'll, they vaguely change the stuff and then they go, nothing like this ever happened and no people and everyone's innocent at the very end. And you're like, it sounds a lot like you're putting your thumb on the scale that these people are guilty in this ongoing thing. But there's also that like kind of ABC after school special version of things where there's like a horrible murder story in the news and they make this like schoolyard bully version of it, but it's obviously it was based on this, like the grump story, and then there's the kids version of the story. There's one of those going on right now. There is a less harmful, ever so slightly, I suppose. And no one's been killed that we know of so far. I suppose I should put that caveat in there because anything could happen. Version of the Murdaugh family happening in Colorado right now. I don't know if you're familiar with this idea. Lauren Boebert, who loves to tell us all how to live and that we should carry a gun everywhere because that's a sign of a functional society, is that you have to be armed or you might be killed while you're trying to order eggs at a restaurant or get ready for a book report. I mean, nothing shows the power of a free society like having to wear body armor when you go to Starbucks. That's how you know. But apparently,
or just having the rollout shields that you can get behind at a school, that
sure, yeah, the
like
bulletproof backpacks that drop, we'll eventually be sending our kids to schools in school uniforms that are made out of the John Wick material, and that's when they'll finally be happy. And then of course everyone will suffocate because of wearing Kevlar all the time. They'll have this weird unintended consequence of no oxygen getting in through your skin, and people go, why are all these kids dead? Oh, it's because your skin needs to breathe or whatever. Well, how the Lord should have given us shells. All right. Anyways, you know the story about her son Tyler, right? Tyler Boebert. Do you know this one, Johnny?
Did he get a young child pregnant?
Yes, he did. Yes, that's part of the story.
17-year-old? Yeah.
Yeah. He's 17. The kid he got pregnant was 14. She will be having the baby as a 15-year-old. Yep. That's why Boebert is saying she's going to be she's a grandmother for his 17-year-old boyfriend. Our son got his 14-year-old girlfriend pregnant while telling us all how to live and Jesus-y Jesus. This, by the way, I have seen more footage of her speaking at churches and giving speeches than town halls or constituencies. Period. End of story. If you look up, you want to find a speech that Lauren Boebert has made where she's actually said something. It's not just an interview on Newsmax. Anything long form that she does is not a town hall. It is not talk to your congressperson. These are all on church stages talking about the end times and you guys got to get right with Jesus. The irony is palpable. But then he was also in a car accident that seriously injured a friend of his. And that kid was in the hospital for a good deal of time. They have talked this kid who was in the passenger seat since that happened. It's a bit lovely, but this kid has, come forward and told the details of the actual, this kid, his name was Noble D'Amato. We know a D'Amato, don't we?
Yeah, we do know a D'Amato.
We do know D'Amato.
Don't be related.
Mm-mm. Well, if he is, he's kind of okay in this situation. Anyways, he had a severely lacerated hand, like tore his hand up in this car wreck and a head injury. He got a concussion and other stuff too. When Tyler Boebert was driving his dad's SUV and they flipped it into a creek bed. He rolled it. Okay, and D'Amato, who's 19 years old. This does
sound really familiar.
Mm-hmm. And so because they tried to, say it was just just a random accident and what have you, and they kind of wanted to blame it on the older kid who was in the passenger seat, which is weird.
Sure, yeah. You find somebody who wasn't driving, maybe not impaired.
Yeah. And ultimately, because they were I guess, not wanting to pay for this kid's injuries or what have you, they started crap talking him and whatnot. And so the kid was like, you know what? I'm going to tell the truth then. He
Good.
was hammered and wrecked the car, endangered my life and the life of other people. And so he had a court date. Tyler Bobert was due in court earlier this week, maybe Tuesday, and he didn't show. So there is now a warrant out.
Warrant. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a bench warrant for Tyler Bobert. Still, insofar as I know, I don't know where he would be. Is he on the run or something? Now, again, he, I believe, is 18 now, has turned 18 recently or something, or is relatively close to it. That said, 17, you're a responsible driver. If you have a driver's license, you're on the hook for that stuff. And as a minor making stupid decisions, again, the blame falls more on the parents to some degree, I would argue, especially when you have the parents, when the parents are of the ilk where they are constantly giving sermons to everyone else in the world about how to raise their kids, what their kids really know about themselves, their gender and their life and their religious beliefs.
That's where it usually goes sideways, man.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, it's hard to determine, because I think you and I both known folks over the course of our lives that were raised in strict households that, strictly speaking, didn't end up living strict lives. Specifically because they held so harshly against that. Yes. And every kid's going to go through individuation, and it will usually be in direct proportion to the strictness of the limits that are put. Right. Now, occasionally, well, I would say the vast majority, though, of nudniks and no goods and whatnot that I grew up around were apples that didn't fall too far from the tree. That, quite frankly, that they weren't. We had a couple of preachers' daughters and preachers' sons that were an issue when I was growing up in Kentucky. But the vast majority of the troublemakers, that they like their parents. Their parents drank a bunch. They partied. They did a lot of gun toting and shooting each other, and their kids did the exact same thing, right? And that's how the majority of this is. The ironic part is that the Boberts seem to be the perfect mix of both, right?
Yeah.
They are a prime example of how to not apparently parent your kids in a reasonable way, from good behavior from bad behavior, and then put on this veneer of Christendom, of pious behavior that the kids know is false as well, apparently, and the parents don't act that way when they're at home or around anybody else.
I'm sorry, Mary P in the chat made me laugh. Not like Footloose kind of trouble.
Well, how did Footloose start? Do you remember what caused the no dancing, no drinking and stuff? Do you remember?
As God is my witness, I've never seen Footloose.
What?
Footloose or Dirty Dancing? I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
If you don't remedy that between now and next week, you're off the show forever. I don't understand it. It's just to get the references, son. Just to be able to.
I get a ton of the references without it. Just like
you do not.
My wife didn't see Jurassic Park until just recently, and she understood all the references.
Look, don't throw her in front of the bus or in front of the Brontosaurus, young man. This has nothing to do with her. Don't drag her into your personal hell.
So many people in the chat have not seen this. Oh, and now others have seen it. Now I'm getting yelled at. Okay, look, you people. Footloose is the best? Maybe.
What
was the name of that girl in Footloose? Wasn't she in Fame?
Lori Singer?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was poor man's Daryl Hannah for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I don't
There's a bunch
even
of
a rich man's Daryl Hannah. Come on.
Well, Daryl Hannah is from our neck of the woods. She's from Chicago, so I don't
for
think
real?
we can. I think it's
No idea.
I think it's Yeah, I think it's sacrilege for us to even say that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so there is currently, insofar as I know, he has not shown up magically in the last 24 hours. There's a bench warrant out for Lauren Boebert's kid right now, after he just told her that he's having a baby and crashed a car with a friend in it, who gave his friend a debilitating lifelong injury. So I would like you to look.
So that's how Footloose started.
Yeah. Well,
With
no
a car crash.
Yeah. Well, that's the root of the reason why there's no dancing and no drinking and no partying and stuff. That's it. It's why it became a dry county. It's that's the story. That's the backstory. That's the ghost in screenwriting terms. That's the ghost in the story.
Okay.
And we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. If anybody sees Lauren Boebert's son Tyler, do not approach. His parents are armed and dangerous. But just sock that away the next time they start moralizing at you. We'll be back right after this. No, you can't. Oh, Chicago. That's it.
What did they just play?
Footloose.
Boy, they had to be quick with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just throw that. We'll get a RIAA slam.
Yeah, exactly.
We got less than 12 seconds of it or whatever.
You know what's funny is that I never get, even though I do play like the real Freebird, the sample is short enough that when it comes up on YouTube as a copyright hit, they're just like, no action needed. And it's the same for all the Convoy and all of my stuff, because when I put it out for digital distribution, I said, give it all to me, even unpaid. Oh, by the way, highly recommend these.
Those would be the Reese's Easter egg things.
Fuck yes.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. I'm a Cadbury cream egg fan. I do. Yeah, but let's see. I've had like one piece of candy in 8 months. Yeah.
Sorry, no sorry.
And then I have one, and then I'm over it, which is good, I guess.
That's good. I'm the same way with mushrooms.
The actual mushrooms are like magic mushrooms, right? I see.
No, not magic mushrooms. I think you saw me the last time I did magic mushrooms.
I did?
Yeah, I was at Jimmy O'Brien's.
Oh yeah, maybe yeah. I mean, I honestly couldn't tell the difference between how you.
I just giggling.
20.
Yeah, thank you. You just what? You just
I was just giggling.
Well, I make you giggly sometimes, so I couldn't tell the difference.
Sure do, pal.
I do. It's true.
Somebody asked me if I could play Brian May riffs. Oh my goodness, can I play Brian May?
Can he? Stop him. I know I'm only on one day a week. I get it. I don't have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's
gonna be replace the guitar note.
Did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. So the legal problems of the Republican Party notwithstanding, between Lauren Boebert having a bench warrant out for her son, and which depending on
sound that funny this time.
I know, which depending on how he handles it could affect whether he can be present for the birth of his 15-year-old girlfriend's kid. And Clarence Thomas and Ginny Thomas, both of them having some of the highest level bribery evidence against them in American history. But the nice thing is the Republicans have nothing to worry about, because the guy who's barely at the top of their ticket has no legal problems. Yeah, he's totally fine, and he's handling the ones he does have very well. He's handling them very well. He's calm. He's calm. He's not threatening the lives of judges, acting like some sort of like low end drug kingpin trying to make a name for himself by, in an old Steven Seagal movie, which is, I think, where Trump gets most of his tough guy dialogue is from old Steven Seagal
and
movies.
expressions. They both have like the same weird sour catcher's mitt expression.
That's right. Just pinch your face. Well, that's it. That would be poor man's Robert De Niro. And when some actors try to do poor man's, which by the way, for the record, was for a long time Elias Gotias, and Elias, if you've seen him in a bunch of things, is a masterful actor. He's fantastic. Did you ever see the movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg?
Sure.
Remember the guy who's like the bad guy who, when he's holding the gun to the girl's head or whatever, Shooter blows his hand flat off and he kind of laughs about it, like while he's before he gets that guy. He's in a bunch of stuff. You'd know him. You'd go, oh my god, he's in everything. He's one of those character actors. But for the longest time, and I just love his work. I've never seen
this Elias guy. I'm looking him up here.
Yeah, Koteas, and first of all, a lovely human being. Plays tough guys and bad guys, as often is the case, and is a absolute sweetheart of a human being. And I've never seen the page in anything that he does. That's what I call it, by the way. That's what some of us in the industry call it.
Baseball. Oh, I love this guy. Yeah.
Yes. So
wait a second.
Never pass up a moment to appreciate.
Was he in the John Hughes movie with Eric Stoltz?
Oh, what? Some Kind of Wonderful, or what do you mean?
Yep, heading over there. Over there.
So, I think so.
I think he was the tough guy in that movie.
Yes. He's been around for a long time. He's lovely. That's another conversation for another time. We'll talk about that on the live stream when I start doing I love the 80s, I love the 90s trivia with you for no particular reason. But one of the things we need to address in many ways is this whole
yes, he's the skinhead in Some Kind of Wonderful.
That's right.
From the detention hall.
That's right. He's terrific. Always has been wonderful. And you never see
I
the
didn't
page.
see the page in that either, Hal.
Right. That's what there you go. Yeah, you can see somebody and you're like, I can see that written on a piece of paper.
Yeah, they're thinking about what the director said. All that.
Yeah, and I've never with him. It's the same thing with Philip Seymour Hoffman. You never saw the page with Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's wonderful.
Oh boy, he played such a good jerk. I hated him in every role for so long.
Sure.
Yeah, like he was that good. I was even like rooting against him in The Talent of Mr. Ripley, and I'm like, will you just get off him and let him be a scoundrel?
Right? Yeah. Well, you got to go watch Twister and how lovely he is in Twister.
He's so good in Twister.
He's lovely. Food.
So delightful.
And he's amazing in The Big Lebowski. His little things that he does throughout the whole movie. God bless him. Don't do drugs, kids. Please, just stop. Find some other way to be happy. Do something else, because you don't know where it's coming from. And for the grace of God.
Was he in Boogie Nights too?
Yes, he was. He was. Yeah.
Oh, he was so good in Boogie
He's lovely.
Nights.
And that's another. Don't get me off onto my whole like straight edge rant, because we'll be here all day. But
okay,
Trump's future is nothing but dwindling resources and increasing legal troubles.
Yeah.
The least of his worries was the New York case where he showed up for. Literally, he could get away with that, and he won't ever see a dime of the money that goes to pay the fines for him. It will come from the RNC or some big donor. Somebody else will go like, I want the bragging rights that I paid your fine. I guarantee it. There are scumbags like that out there that think that would get them, laid or business deals in parts of the country, so they just will do it, right? And Georgia will be a bigger problem for him than that, certainly, but his defense of being an idiot who actually thought he was being ripped off, which he has reinforced multiple times. And there's evidence that he knew better and he knew he had lost fair and square. But as a dwindling old man who continually is huffing his own gas, his attorneys may, in the state of Georgia, be able to find a jury that either hangs up or doesn't go anywhere with this, with putting him anywhere for this thing, because he was like, I know there are 100,000 votes out there, so find me 11,700 and we'll worry about the rest of them later, is what they're going to sell as his reasoning. And he was dumb enough to buy it. And they're going to bring in Rudy Giuliani and other people and say, did you tell him he was winning? And they'll go, yeah. And they're not on trial for lying to him, so who cares? He can't sue them for fraud unless he loses, and they haven't got anything anyway. So he feels safe there, but it's murky, and it could go either way, and he's on watery ground with it. The classified documents case, that's bad. And
that's worse.
Yes, it is far worse. The consequences are far worse. The response from the Republican voters and the general public about it are far worse. People who are over him already, this is the perfect excuse for them to cut bait. If they wanted an exit strategy to get away from Donald Trump while still going, I still believe in America first and maggity stuff, this is their opportunity. That's cut and dry. That gives them a reason over the Thanksgiving dinner table when they're the odd person out amongst their, maggot family to say, look, I was with you guys till he did that. And because people died for that information, and he's blah, blah, blah. That, right. Believe me, that is, and especially as this young dude who's, that went to jail this week, Teixeira, the guy who shared the month and a half old, 2-month-old assessment, single assessment, by the way, of the 9 assessments they put out, but whatever, of the Ukraine conflict, which ultimately told us, by the way, that
you went deep Ted Knight right there.
Yes, I do. Oh boy.
Whatever.
Yes, but while that guy's trial is going to be for real, and he's going to see some real jail time, and he's a young man, and that will be happening in parallel with Donald Trump trying to say, if you did, like the story that a lot of Congress people tell about, like, if you did with classified stuff what Hillary Clinton did, you'd be in jail right now. Well, no, they looked into it, and it didn't amount to, a direct action to retrieve documents and share them illegally. In Trump's case, it absolutely does. And in parallel with this Teixeira story, it eats that entire talking point from the Republican side as they try to go, well, what about the documents that Biden found or whatever? Yes, he returned them immediately, as you're supposed to do, and then had the FBI do a whole sweep so that there were none left behind. The only people who had clearance, and Biden himself has clearance right now to have all the stuff that he has, all of it. And even still, he's being more careful than somebody who left office with a bunch of this stuff. That will be the heaviest unpack for Donald Trump going forward. And he knows it. And he's staring down the barrel of it. You know who else knows it? Ron DeSantis.
Oh.
Of course my mother knows it. She's a smart woman and she pays attention.
Your mom is just my default answer whenever somebody says.
Well, and yeah, Mark in the case of my mom, because my mom does know a lot. My mom's a nurse. Absolutely. And nurses are oriented. Yeah, that's right. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Philip Bittner will be joining us from, I believe he's back in Kiev. We'll find out in just a moment. And a lot of movement, especially around this document leak and what ramifications there may have or may have not been from it. We'll be back right after this.
So Philip says he sees you.
Yes, and I hear Philip. I think he can hear us as well. So
okay. I can hear you.
Philip.
Let me go back.
Yay, hello. Yes, I'm back in Kiev.
Okay, cool. And where are... Oh,
who was such a nice boy that used to cut your grass, Mike Cruiser?
Oh, and by the way, we have to thank our super chats as well. Like, we got carried away with all the conversation.
They went flying by. I was all geeked about my guitar playing and didn't read them out loud.
Tisk tisk.
It's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Let him talk, Johnny.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Dostoevsky.
Oh, hold on. You want?
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay. We got a little bit of an echo effect on Philip, but we will remedy that.
And for,
Test 1, 2,
for
3,
your
4,
FYI, I
5.
don't hear the echo on Philip.
I'm the only one who hears it? Okay. Good to know.
Test.
And according to prophecy, Connie Kelly would like you to check your email.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so
Yes, I'm aware.
there it is again. All right. Oh, does the chat room hear the echo from him, or? Oh, yes, you do hear it. Okay, good. So it's not just me. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay.
And it went away.
Test.
No, it's back. All right.
Was thrilling and the flighty toast. Giant Kimberly Bob.
Hold on one second. I know what it is. 1 second.
Man,
This.
man, the chat goes by like a freaking ticker tape parade when there's an
Yes, it
audio
does.
issue. It's like
Da-ba-da-ba-da. Yep. Hold on. Control audio for Australia. There you go. Close. There we go. And then
And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? O frabjous joy, Kalu Kalay.
there we go. I think I got rid of it.
In his joy.
Yep.
Come to my arms, my brilliant. How about now?
Hey, are you familiar with that Woody Woodpecker cartoon when he's at the eye doctor and the eye chart says, I can't see a thing.
Mm-hmm.
How about now? I can't see a thing.
Okay. Transitioning, and there we go. Hey, all right.
Yay. People say it's better. Good job, Al. Hi, Phil.
Yay, huzzah. Somebody's posting me, and somebody's texting me. Boop, 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 boop.
So
I'm on myself. I'm already on myself.
Right. Also, do you know the stuff about what I'm new to this? What Gherkin apparently said about Putin that Solovyev was all mad about?
That pickle guy?
Yeah. Well, I don't know the specifics of it. But I know that he has been harsh on him recently, and people are like, he better be running.
Mm-hmm.
What he actually said something about Solovyev? Is that what the deal is, or he said something about Putin?
No, Solovyev has had a problem. Let's see. Lashed out at Igor Skirkin because of his unflattering words about Putin. On a show, he began to threaten those who insult the supreme leader. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. I refused the... in addition, he recalled how Gherkin refused the offers of Wagner mercenaries to fight against Ukraine when the war is over. Many questions we had when the war... he admitted that the Russian Federation he
criticized
nothing but
Putin for going
continuous
to
defeats.
Crimea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And called Putin, in fact, the leader of the nation and is overthrown. The criminal complains that Russians have no other president and that Putin created such a wonderful system himself.
Yeah,
so everybody, he's basically just saying he's seized control of the country, but he's crap at it. My Russian's a little shaky, but
nailed it.
Yeah, and then
compared him to Hitler.
He did.
Oh, that's not going to go over well.
No, it's not going to go over well.
Funny.
Excellent.
Hey, hi, Chicago. Thank you.
Hi, Philip. How you holding up?
Good, thank you. Just got back from a nice trip, so internally with Ukraine. So
good.
Always good to get new information.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at HalSparks.com.
I don't care for you if the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimp stick. Progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show. Joining us from Kiev right now. He's back there after taking an internal trip through Ukraine to gather and experience as you do. Philip Bittner's joining us, safe and sound, relatively. Mentally, we don't know, but physically sound in Kiev. And Johnny Million's still with us. By the way, like, subscribe, support the show in any way that you can. If you can at all, just enjoy the information we try to provide. And so lots, obviously, the story of the leaked document stuff, continued to roll out this week to essentially a whole lot of nothing. Ultimately, is there a big reaction and stuff there?
No, not really. I mean, there's some frustration that America's intelligence secrets are so liable to be revealed, but nothing about Ukraine, except maybe that Ukrainians are saying, look, see, some of these documents do know that we have a D or we have a lack of artillery, and you need to give us more. You need to give us more ammunition.
Which Zelensky's been saying the entire time. I mean, they're going to say.
But as far as this being like a leak that revealed like sensitive material that compromises Ukraine's war effort, no, there's no concern of that here. There's just, I mean, it's not a good look on the American intelligence community that he's 21, right? This kid, this guy in Massachusetts. Yeah, the 21-year-old guy has got access to intel like that. But if I have to say anything about it, not from the perspective of people around me here in Ukraine, but my own perspective on it, is that I want to know a lot more about that chat group or the Minecraft or the whatever group he was in, the gaming group that he was in.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know who those other guys were. Because we've heard tale that at least one of them, was a Russian, and so the question then arises for me. And again, I'm not. You know me, Hal. I don't, and people who have followed me know I'm not. I won't draw a conclusion until we have some more solid evidence about this. But I want to know who was in that group, and if actually somebody from the GRU.
Yeah. So the story that was floating around was that the New York Times figured out who this guy was before the FBI did or before the government did, which is not the case. They just showed up on the guy's property, so they had to go arrest him. The problem, the FBI and the DOJ and the DOD were looking at this guy since the leak happened, since about like a day after the leak happened. And part of it was that they were still combing through the details on this particular server. And because you're not going to be able to order it up and, there's all kinds of, free speech reasons and blah, blah, blah. That infiltration of something like sending an undercover agent into a drug deal or something like that is not illegal at all. A similar thing has to happen sometimes in these groups. So they get somebody in there who can get admin capability or try to get admin capability, and then they can see who everybody is because they were given the members of that group, right? And that's in these and in Discord, that's how it's all done. So they were trying, it seems, they were attempting to do this. And then the Times jumped the gun and went to interview the guy that they think they had, and then the police had to come and get him because he shoots off guns and says anti-Semitic and racist things, and they were concerned that, all right, if he bugs out, we've lost the tail of this thing, and we've got to arrest him, and it's going to be dangerous because the guy has he has machine guns. He's a member of the military.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and look, as a veteran member of the press corps, I worked for CBS. I worked for Al Jazeera. I worked for Sky. I worked for. It's not that uncommon that a diligent member of the Fourth Estate comes, does their digging, finds out that, oh, hey, this is this, and A leads to B leads to C, and we dig enough that we actually get our own information, and then law enforcement is like, well, okay, all right, so now it's in the press, so we gotta, but you're right, you're 100% right. It does not preclude the idea that the CIA or DOD or
that figured out who he was.
This guy on right and was like let's use now. I mean, in essence, let's have our own useful idiot. But I again come back to the question of who else was in this gamer group,
right?
And if there were even Ukrainians or people posing as Ukrainians, were they egging him on to like, hey, prove that you have access to this stuff? Show us, show us some stuff. I mean, they're really good at this. Yeah, you got to understand. The intelligence is incredibly good.
Yeah, that was the argument.
Well,
that if you listen
good, but then they get caught.
Yeah, you listen to the interviews with the kids that are that were in there with him. One of them said that there was a Russian here. The guy said he was Russian, but he was really from Kentucky, which I think is hilarious. And how he knew he was
there's
where
more
he was
on
really
that,
from ultimately is neither here nor there. But the idea though is that he was like trying to show off was the idea, and I think that's what you're talking about is that he was using it as a way of having clout with these other guys. And so ultimately, once you know that's what somebody's seeking, you just egg them on or go, I think you're full of crap. I think you're lying to all of us. I think you don't have anything like it, or this is made up or whatever. How do we know this is even real? Blah, blah. And then you egg him to like, I bet you couldn't get this. I bet you can't get anything about Ukraine. This is like 10 months old. Anybody knows this. And then all it takes is a few months of that stuff. And suddenly this guy is pouring stuff in to try and win the affections and the respect of people he's never met in person. And that's always the issue with online chat groups and the like. And it's what the Jan Sixers complain about when they were like, there were feds infiltrating our entire thing. We're like, yeah, because one of your buddies told people that you were starting to make bombs, and they were like, yeah, I'm out, and started bringing, other people in to kind of keep tabs on you. That's how this works. If you want to be a terrorist, you're going to draw that kind of attention from the people that don't want to die. So, the other thing, we'll get to it. But anyways, continue your thought, and then I'll. There are a couple other things.
No, I was good at like this and getting useful idiots. It's spycraft. It's information gathering, and all. Not to disparage or be ageist, but when you're at that age. When you're 21 years old and you're in a group of gamers or you're in a group of peer you're what you perceive to be your peers, and you want to get there, be on their good side, there's a desire to kind of show off or to to gather like-minded people and be their friend, and the Russians are going to capitalize on that. So how much damage was done? We'll have to see, because there's a question of the reality on the ground. The Ukrainians are taking it as how much can we trust? How much information will we trust giving to the Americans if they're leaking like a sieve like this? But and also even though these documents show that yes, you guys know that we need more ammunition, well, time to give us more ammunition. But anything else just doesn't disturb the Ukrainians.
I thought the most fascinating part of it, and we got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll I want to talk about the fact that Putin has canceled 3-day, but Prigozhin has declared has said mission accomplished in Ukraine, which is very weird. But
and as a quick teaser for the happening, I've got something related to this whole perception. What is reality and who is actually who they are, and they're not in the war. So stick around for the happy ending for that one.
Fascinating. I will say this: the leaked documents. One of the things that they did show was that the Russian special forces have effectively been wiped out because of the battle. Because Russia made a choice to send in to take their special forces teams, which were supposed to just go in for demolitions and small missions and whatever, and they just put them in regular army positions and let them get bombed to death. And it will apparently take, the assessment is that was leaked, it's going to take them years to reconstitute teams of that quality. They're gone. And they pulled them from everywhere. They pulled them from Chechnya. They pulled them from Syria. They pulled them from the edge of Georgia. They pulled them from the border with China. All these places where they are most crucial, and they put them in Ukraine as regular infantry, and then 80% of them, one group, there were 900 deployed out of this particular group. 125 of them are still alive. And that doesn't even, by the way, speak to their ability to be active. Just because they're alive doesn't mean they're not injured. So it was pathetic, a terrible, terrible decision on behalf of the Russian military, proving that they are the number 2 military in the world. We'll be back right after this. More Philip Bittner, and your questions and comments via Johnny Million in the chat at infotainmentwars.com. That's our YouTube channel. Hey, subscribe. We're almost at 50K. I'm very excited. 50,000 real, actual subscribers, not the purchased ones that those other folks have. We'll be back. Yeah. So, so Putin canceled the national military parades because I don't know, because I think they've sent the old broken down stuff. Like usually, you take some of your old tanks and you paint them, you throw a spit polish on them, and you make them look modern, but they're really not the real ones. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, what they normally do, and I use about a mile away from the Red Square parade. What they would normally do is they trot out the old T-34s, which won the war. I don't think a lot of those were actually being repurposed for fighting.
Right.
But what they like to do is show their armada. We'll talk about it on the other side here. But the thing that I was referring to with the happy ending is, have you seen this whole thing about Donbass, Demushka?
We're coming back in 10 seconds.
So save it for that part of it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I got a treat.
Very exciting.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
Hoo-yah!
Welcome back. So, 2 things happened this week, which are, I think, for a lot of Americans who lived through the Bush years, or lived through what passed for the Bush years, would ring sour in our ears, which is, of course, that the head of the Wagner Group, the Wagner Mercs, of which we have our own, he would be the Blackwater, they would be the Blackwater of Russia in a lot of ways. He declared mission accomplished. He said that's it. It's all done. They got what they needed. They're done in Ukraine. The Wagner Group thinks it's cool now. But he said mission accomplished. And then the same time, and for reasons that I have a theory about, Vladimir Putin has canceled Victory Day, which is their big military parade. It's like canceling 4th of July, kind of, as far as big parades go. Which not super advisable.
Bigger than that.
Yeah?
But yeah. Oh yeah.
Bigger than the 4th of July?
Yeah, May 9th in Russia is Victory Day. And it is a combination of July 4th mixed with Veterans Day, mixed with because you have to understand that for the Russians, World War II and the victory over Nazi Germany is even bigger than history. It is religion. It is like the biggest thing that has happened in their history since the defeat of Napoleon or the Bolshevik Revolution. It's one of the seminal moments in Russian history that they mythologize and they turn into this thing that's larger than life itself. And when I lived in Moscow, I would, because I lived on a route that they would take leading towards Red Square. I lived on this the Ring Road, I lived at near Svednoy Boulevard, which was Flower Street, and it's part of the ring road, and they would leave the tanks in. So I would see the artillery passing by my front door, and it was massive. And they do it to show strength of their current status, but they also do it to like regale this massive victory over Nazi Germany, which of course wasn't an important. But they turn it into look. Everybody has their World War. Everybody who participated has their World War II mythology. We talk about D-Day. We talk about all that kind of. The Brits like to talk about the Battle of Britain and defending the air battles to defend Britain. The French talk about French resistance. The Poles talk about their resistance. But the Russians just take it to the next level, and it is mythologized. It is turned into this great thing. So for him to cancel this parade, and by the way, he first canceled the parades around the Ukrainian border, which tells you that they had concerns that maybe the Ukrainians would disrupt it, because the Ukrainians realize how really important this is to Russians. But the fact that he would cancel this, and it's the second time, it's 2 years in a row now. It is not going to reflect well, even if they try to put some sort of happy spin on it. It would. I am sure that Russians will know that this is not a good thing, because this parade is an incredibly important way. You see the North Koreans do this as well. The North Koreans have this, these parades of like, and Trump. You remember when Trump wanted to do? I mean, the French do it too. So it's not just autocracies that do it. The French have their Bastille Day military parade, which kind of exhibits their military prowess.
Famously saw Bastille Day and wanted to recreate it here. Yeah.
Yeah, like you could roll a bunch of Abrams tanks down the mall. I mean, come on. And also, look, the French do it in a slightly different way. I'm not crazy about these military parades as just because I think they're a bit gauche. I think it's like, okay, so you get a bunch of weapons. But for Trump to have said that, it was just ridiculous. But what the Russians do with their May 9th Victory Day parade is it is to bring the history of the world over Nazi Germany and bring it into, hey, that is our legacy. That's why you see so much of this propaganda about Ukraine is filled with Nazis, because they're trying to tell their own people, hey, you can participate in something similar to what your grandfathers, mostly now grandfathers, fought in the Second World War. You can continue the fight against Nazi Europe, Western Europe, if you go and fight in Ukraine. That's why they use that mythology of fighting Nazis, and they apply it to Ukraine. There are not, as we have discussed many times in the past, Ukraine is not filled with Nazis. That is Russian propaganda, but it is Russian propaganda that is consumed internationally in kind of like, we sure don't want to be supporting Nazis. But what it says to Russians is, hey, come and participate in this thing that your grandfather participated in, and carry on the legacy of the great Fatherland War, the Великая Отечественная война. And you can not only can you carry on the legacy, but you can participate in pushing that legacy forward.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. I mean, internally in Russia, to cancel that parade, it's sends a message. And
to do it at the same time that the Wagner Group, leader is basically saying, what do you mean? We did have. He goes. I think Prigozhin's thing was like, we've done what we wanted to already, but we proved our point. But we should keep fighting. We should keep fighting simply so that the world can know that we are a war monster, is the phrase he used, and fear us. Which is so weird, because if you listen to the tankies, apparently that's what the United States is clamoring about, and saying the quiet part loud and blah blah, because we're not letting Ukraine get curb stomped. I just find that fascinating. Do you think that's more of him jockeying for a power position in and amongst, Russia, because like right now they seem to be frozen in place, and we talked about it before how like Russia does nothing, and then everything happens.
Right.
Because the Institute for the Study of War is saying that he is hoping to like make a move, that he effectively thinks, Putin's getting weak enough where he could be the guy.
I mean, I don't know if Putin is getting weak enough for him to replace Putin, but he could certainly jockey for a leading position within his cabinet. He could be the he could be the
To get Shoigu's
strong
job.
man. He could be he could be Putin's toady.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you remember anybody who's watched the old Christmas Story, the toady that with what's his name, with green eyes, had his little toady. He could navigate himself into that kind of position where he's the kind of like no neck thug who does the dirty work for Putin, but Putin, because to replace Putin is going to be a really right. To replace Putin is going to be a very, very difficult job, and it's going to have to be somebody. And I do not think Prigozhin has the means or the support internally within Russia, or the character or the capacity to be the ultimate leader. But he could sure step into a position where he's the strong man. We see that out of the Chechen leader, Radovan Kadyrov.
Right.
He could be that kind of guy.
Sure, but there's an inherent problem with that, which is Putin's sort of paranoid about the circle around him being a bunch of incompetence, because he fears anybody with competence, and I wouldn't let that dude get anywhere near me if I was him, in that state. So that's the problem you have. Like, and by the way, welcome back, Gonzo. We see people in the chat room. We're going to take questions. Gonzo, we're going to take some questions from the chat as well. Do we have any already? I want to grab some before the break if we can.
Oh, yeah? Right now?
Yeah. Do we have one, Johnny?
Sweet. Got one from Jim the Geek. What is the deal? It's a very Seinfeld question. What is the deal with the new PMC being formed to replace the Wagner Group? That's not very funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a number of PMCs that are being created in Russia, and a lot of people are very concerned about all these private military groups that are being formed, because if the center breaks, which is we have to explain that there's a real threat that if Putin loses this war, when Putin loses this war, that because he has made a structure within Russia that is reliant on him as the center of gravity, that if he is displaced because he entered into a foolish war that he's going to lose, that the loss of a center of gravity means that Russia might fracture into all of its disparate little parts of the federation. And there are a number of private military groups like Wagner that are being created, and lots of people are concerned, although they don't speak about it openly in Russia. A lot of Russian commentators talk about it, because if that fracturing of the Russian Federation happens, everybody's going to want to have their own little private military. It's basically going to be warlords. It's when the rebels beat the empire, as those who watched the last episode of Borean will know, that the warlords will jockey for control of their own little fiefdoms.
Right.
And there's a lot of concern internationally, and they don't talk about it openly, but it bubbles beneath the surface internally within Russia, that there's deep concern that might happen. It's all because for 22 years, Vladimir Putin has created a system where he is integral in everything in the entire power structure. And if he is overthrown because he is engaged in this ridiculous war that he is bound to lose, and which will lose Russia its crown jewel of its empire, being Ukraine, that there will be all these warlords within the Russian Federation. So that's the concern about all these PMCs.
Cool. And I think, we're right at the break. So let's take a break and we'll come back with more questions from the chat room. For Philip, Johnny will be farming him, send him to his attention in the chat room at Facebook or at Twitch or on YouTube. We'll be back right after this. Mm-hmm.
I just got 7 subscribers on YouTube since I begged people to subscribe to my channel.
If you feel
It
dirty,
worked.
you should.
A little dirty.
No.
No.
Come on.
Do it.
Don't hate.
Do it.
Don't say I hate the game.
I'm going to squeeze this in from Moat's Art. How is Philip able to watch The Mandalorian and Kev?
I have my ways.
VPNs are a
VPNs are a lovely thing.
And what is your favorite character in The Mandalorian, and why is it Grogu?
It's not Grogu. I hate he's in an ID unit now. Ooh, spoilers. It's Bill. I like Bill Burr. I know. I'm a real fan.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Burr's character is fantastic. Gotta love me some Carl Weathers. You know.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Sedaris.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, every time I see her, I just want to go watch Strangers with Candy over again.
Seriously, that is perfection.
Yeah.
There's a sequence when her mom is yelling at her, and she's either going up or down the stairs, and everything that she wants to do to act out, her mom predicts and stops her. And she's like, "Don't rub poop on the lamp. Don't do." And it makes me laugh every single time. She's just like, "Oh, foiled." And Cocaine Bear's on Peacock, by the way.
The Sedarises are a very talented family.
Yep. I mean, the Paul Dinello Colbert scene at the urinal in the very first episode.
Oh my God!
Which sets the tone for the relationship the whole time, where it just like there's 3 urinals and he just walks up and stands right behind him, waiting. And so
their whole relationship is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about my trip.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get to that. So yes, true. Father of the Sea Country.
Out there with a kid who has kind of like social media following. It just reminded me how old I am.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
There's a lot of questions people have. People want to hear about your trip as well. I have to say, there's this weird, I mean, there's so much going on. So it's hard to even know where to start. But you went into the fray, as it were, and tell us a little bit about your.
So the last 4 days, I left on Tuesday. I was out in Zaporizhia, near the atomic plant. People might recognize that name by the atomic plant. I didn't go anywhere near that, but it's very close to the front lines. It's just on the western side of the Dnieper River. On the east side of the river is where there's a front line, a very volatile front line. And went there and spent some time with some Ukrainian armed forces. I spent some time with some guys supporting the armed forces. Went and met with refugees who had escaped the fighting in Mariupol, the Azovstal factory, for example. It's always good to get out. It's always good to be on the ground and getting firsthand information. Look, the front lines are scary. It's constantly there's the possibility of being shelled. When I was there, it was relatively quiet, but you could tell everybody was on their they were keeping things nice and tight, and they were observing the situation, and they were ready to pull back if we actually come under fire. And you could tell that was a possibility. When I was there with guys supporting the effort, I was there with a guy who does food, for example. He prepares meals for the soldiers, and he was just talking about the capacity and wanting to grow the capacity in the international community. When I was there with the refugees who had escaped the fighting in Mariupol, there was, it was interesting to see how they kept cohesion with their neighbors. So even though they had been driven away from their hometown, they still kind of kept a cohesive communities. I went to a community center that was providing like dentistry. They were doing laundry for people. They were helping people find jobs in Zaporozhye because they, of course, had to flee Mariupol. A children's school, that kind of thing. That was interesting to see. But Zaporozhye is, it's right there on the things. And as is always the case when I go to places like that, one of the things that I see is that there is no sense of defeat. There's a consensus of like, this is a temporary thing. Eventually we will take our country back. So there's a lot of that going on out there. But it was an interesting trip. I'll be putting together reports, material that I gathered probably over the next week to 10 days, 2 weeks, sort of thing.
Gotcha. Cool.
So check out my blogs.
Yes. And Johnny Million, questions that have come up.
Questions. Okay, so from Connie Kelly, is the leaked material more detrimental on an intelligence front or a trust front?
I think more on a trust front. I don't think it's too old. The material's too old for them to, and also it's not specific about like where the counteroffensive is going to be launched from this place. None of that's there. So it's more an issue for the Ukrainians that are like, well, how much can we tell the Americans? Because if they can't keep their act together, do we want to tell them every little last thing? Because can we trust that they're, that they've got their house in order?
Right. Let's grab another one because I think
Okay, another one. We've got from Elizabeth. What's going on with Belarus? It's been too quiet.
Too quiet. Quiet is good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any major development in Belarus. Lukashenko did something this week, but it wasn't significant enough for me to really be.
It was a lot of but nothing is materially moved in the last little bit.
Yep.
But and also, I think he's trying to avoid that the weapons on their soil thing, because that was one of the things that Xi Jinping pushed back on, was the expansion of tactical nukes into Belarus. They did not like that at all. They viewed that as basically giving the U.S. or Japan, more specifically Japan, permission to put bigger weapons around Taiwan or the South China Sea or the like, out of an abundance of caution. This gives them the okay to do so, and that really
and fundamentally, you got to understand about Belarus is that Lukashenko is in a no-win situation because he owes his power to Putin. So he kind of has to obey what Putin says. And yet at the same time, he precedes Putin because he's been in power since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And his power structure internally within Belarus relies on the security forces that Putin would like to see used to push into Ukraine. Now, if he uses the armed forces to go into Ukraine, that means he will not be protected back in the capital of Minsk. So he wants to obey Daddy Putin, but if he does what Daddy Putin wants, then he has a very good chance of being overthrown. So he's in a no-win situation, and I don't see any change for him. The sad thing for old little Sasha Lukashenko is that when Putin again inevitably is deposed, as he is inevitably going to be, he's only pushing off the inevitable in many ways. So,
and also that there's
I
this
don't think
idea
he's
that
going to use his armed forces, but he's screwed.
And also, Lukashenko is presiding over the creeping annexation of Belarus by Putin under most people's estimation. That this is all that he's the Yanukovych that was put in place to allow Putin to salami slice his way across the country until they could take it over through fake referendum after fake referendum. That's what Yanukovych was for.
Well,
before he was.
Putin wants to reconstruct the Soviet Union. I mean, I don't think I think he wants to reconstruct the Russian Empire, frankly. But let's go with the Soviet Union. And if there is a reconstruction of the Soviet Union, there will be a Belarus. Right, there will be a Belarus republic where a puppet government, where Lukashenko is on a leash from Moscow. It'd be a possibility. But the problem is that, as I say, Putin's on borrowed time as well because he's going to lose this war. So Lukashenko is in a really difficult. I have no compassion for the man because he's evil and he beats the heck out of his own people, and I've seen it firsthand. But he is the poor guy is in a no-win. Oh, boo-hoo for little Alexander Lukashenko.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you that's again where he's being the Dane, in that regard. Does he want a pillow for his head? Being the lackey, the side thug, and kind of inheriting some level of toughness because of the leader. And you only really have that until that guy goes. And if he's in danger of going, that makes you look even more vulnerable. So it's probably why he says very little and toes whatever line he can. And it's probably like every other oligarch that's actually survived, building an exit strategy right now. We've heard reports over the last,
if I was him, I would be.
Yeah. You need a ripcord.
If I was him, I would be. Yeah, I hope my villa in wherever, China or some other kind of pariah state. I hope that he's getting his stuff out and sending it to the villa because it's coming.
Yep.
Anyhow.
Let's grab another one, Johnny.
So that's Belarus.
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to throw in that Bill Fultz actually had the question in the queue about the WAPO interview with the leader of the Wagner Group before you guys addressed it.
With Prigozhin, the interview of him. I mean, effectively, that's I wish they would say something new, but they're just not. The only difference is the only thing you watch Prigozhin and what he says, I think, is to see his power play between him and the military and Putin himself. Then when they start crossing into that line, it's the only thing's news because the rest of it, he's just making money off of murdering people. He's a disgusting human being, and Putin just wants to, as a chess piece. Effectively, I'm more Africa, quite frankly.
Well, we've talked about this times about Prigozhin, and also, by the way, I mean the fact that we know that we are learning that the beheading video that came out this week, which is just awful, was connected to Wagner. But we've talked about this in the past, and about how beneath the czar, beneath the head of state, beneath whoever it is, the big guy, the alpha is in Russia. There are these phases in conflict in Russia where they set because the big guy can't be held responsible, so he has to, for the catastrophe, whatever it is that is happening, by setting his second layer, the boyars, the aristocracy of Russia, one of them against one another, because what the Tsar will do, or Putin, or the head of the the premier of the Soviet Union, so that they fight amongst themselves, so that whoever ends up winning or being that second tier power structure, whoever wins or loses, the winner can bring the head of the loser to the head of state. And say, this is the guy that caused, this is why we didn't win the war in Ukraine, great leader, and I have slayed him for you. Now everything will be fine. Because, of course, the Tsar cannot be the one responsible. So I think a lot of Prigozhin is not aimed at taking over Putin. His adversary, Shoigu, or any other kind of leading military leaders, so that he can then go, because they're only new. The leader can't be responsible. It's obvious the people beneath him who have, screwed things up. And that's what I think this fight is happening beneath the surface, the second tier below Putin. So you can then blame whoever is the loser in that second tier fight, and they can then, say, "Oh, but I will save everything."
Right.
And the czar can continue to exist because he can then say, "Aha! I have found the good guy, and the bad guy has been defeated." That's a lot of things. I think a lot of that's the second level, the stuff beneath Putin that's going on right now.
Yeah, and that's it's one of those situations where if you know the leader is, if the king is paranoid, you know that if you go anywhere near him, he will smack you down, even if you're there to help. Then your only real job is to jockey out the people at your level or below. You become your own version of him, essentially, and you can the only moves you can make are lateral to where he's got no one else to rely on but you.
If you also know that he is integral to the entire power structure, so he cannot be removed, because then chaos ensues, like we were talking about with the fracturing of the different republics within the Federation. So you can't get rid of the Tsar. What you can do is make yourself essential to him, and you can protect him. You can be the shield. And I think that's a lot of what this fight is going on internally within Russia as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Because what happened? Gravity, there'll be a vacuum, and nature in the Russian Federation, a vacuum.
Yeah, but the problem is nature will continue to exist beyond all of us. The Russian Federation existence any more than any other situation
no
is.
means.
Right. So we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with the happy ending, actually, because I've got some happy ending stuff, too. It's a little schadenfreude, a happy ending, but it's still, stand by it. We'll be back.
All right. Kitty, throw up. I'll be right back.
Aw.
Yeah.
Aw.
In a moment.
Can't wait till it solidifies a little bit, or no? That's not gonna. Hold on, let me take this down. So I don't know. Let me see if I can put this up so you can see it there. This article came out. William Burns was talking last week, and this is, they'll push back against this, and some, China apologists and tankies will push back against this, but this is absolutely what's happening. If you look at the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, the exposure of Belt and Road Initiative loans that everybody talks about, like, loaned out to these impoverished countries that can't pay them back. Thank you. That that can't pay them back, right? And they're gonna scoop up parts of Africa and and Indonesia, and they're gonna they're screwing Sri Lanka and South America. That's all true. But you know who has the most debt to China of all the countries in the world? Russia.
We do.
No.
Russia. Oh.
Stand by. I'll
no.
come back.
Okay, thanks. China's bought American bonds. That's not the same. They're on the same.
You are happy. Let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky. You are lucky. Let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you? Chugga chugga choo choo. Woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yeah. There's we only have for the happy ending right now, we only have Philip Ittner because Johnny's cat threw up, and so he's taking care of business. There, oh no, he's back. His happy ending was
I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I'm hurt. I'm hurt.
Well, it's a team effort. Yeah. We're down a man.
There you
That's
go.
what I was saying. It was a power play. It was a power play. We had nobody. We had no goalie. Right. all right, you were pushing. You were mentioning that you have a happy. I want to thank everybody for the super chats today. Steven Gonzalez and Adrian. Let's see, Charlotte and Francis and Amanda and Pooh Picker Upper and Jackie and of course our dear friend Hal Vickery and Therese and Bald Thanos and Richard Fleer, and bless all of you. Thank you guys, and TOH Show Live. Thank you for the gift subs as well. Appreciate the support, you guys. It's wonderful. Yeah, there we go. Gonzo. So this is all right. So you first. You first, because you teased this.
Do you want my hat? Because I teased it. Okay. So there's an individual out there who had in social media and on kind of Tanky's podcasts and stuff, who was kind of beloved by the Tanky community, by the people who are anti-Ukraine, who are pro-Russian, an individual who went by the name of the Donbass Devushka, which translates to the girl of Donbass, the disputed area in the east of Ukraine. And she would go on and she would talk to people like Scott Ritter or, some of the, Jackson Hinkle or Jim. I don't know if Jimmy Dore had her on or whether or not he just would retweet her. She would come on with a very thick Russian accent. Turns out, she's from outside Spokane. So all these Tankies who would refer to her and be like, see, the people out in the Donbass, they want to love Russia and they hate Kiev. They want to be part of Russia. We're framing their worldview and their argument about this war based on a girl who was cosplaying as a resident of Donbass. This is why I say.
What was her name? What was her name?
Donbass. Her name was Donbass Devushka. Devushka. Devushka, which is a Russian word. So I mean, she called herself the Donbass girl. Turned out she was faking, and she would put on a fake thick Russian accent, and as is the social web community, eventually she's been outed. But it's important. I laugh about it because it's funny to see these idiots who base their worldview about the war in Ukraine based on people like that. Because I have to just reiterate, I don't know how many times I have this. If you're not physically here, if you're not somebody, I say this to like the Tankies like Aaron Mate or all these kind of guys. It's like, it's not that hard. Get on a plane, fly to Krakow, get in a taxi. It's a 45-minute drive from Krakow to the Ukrainian border. Step inside Ukraine, and they won't, because they would rather rely on very thin, foolish propagandists who kind of push this narrative about Nazis or about the Donbass really loving, being part of Moscow and being part of the Russian Federation, when it's not really true. It's the reality is, the folks like me, folks like Malcolm Nance, folks like Dylan Burns, folks like Sarah Ashton Carrillo, who are actually coming over here, stepping foot internally within Ukraine. It doesn't take a lot of time being here before you realize that a lot of those narratives are false. There is not a Nazi regime in Ukraine. There is the people of Ukraine are not predisposed to an autocratic system as that would be created in a Nazi regime. So it makes me laugh because I love to see somebody, I love to get people who are, and I have seen this woman's tweets before, and I was like, oh, if she is actually in Donbass, because I'm sure there are people in Donbass who are unhappy with Kiev, and they've been at war for 8 years.
Some of them were there to say they are. That's the whole problem with the Bill Blogger thing. So they filled the place.
There you go. That's right. So I'm always a little bit like, I'm sure there are people who are really upset with Kiev and who hate Zelensky and who are pro-Russian. or who are Russian speakers and feel that is a threat. But then to see that there are actually just people who are cosplaying, or who are are useful idiots, or they're placed there by the Kremlin or the GRU, and to see techies of the world who are so eager to have that narrative fulfilled, just buy it hook, line, and sinker, and then to have it revealed makes me. It's a little bit of Schadenfreude. They got Maria Butina. That's right.
Yeah,
they got you done got fooled. Don't listen to people.
Right.
Don't listen to people who have never stepped foot in Ukraine or never stepped foot in Russia. I'll even say that. There is like my trip out to Zaporozhye. There is no replacement for actually on the ground, first person reportage or reporting. It's just if you're sitting in Los Angeles in a studio and you're telling me what's happening in Ukraine,
no,
no, take it with a big old grain of salt.
I have
That's
my happy ending. Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I look forward to tracking some of that stuff down. Biden was in Ireland this week, and he had a great welcome, and they gave him they stood up and they gave him a long standing ovation. And they were welcoming him home because his family's, the Bidens are Irish and whatnot. And it was great just seeing it. It looked really nice. And then he went on stage to the Dropkick Murphys. They played I don't know if you haven't seen it, it's friggin' great. And he's running around and waving, and it's all good. And it's just like such a great, it's like a picture you never see of Trump. Because he's smiling, and it's his island. He went out there. I can't play it because obviously we get hit with copyright things, even the hint of a song. But if you get a chance to check it out, he walks out. The fact that he came out to a Dropkick Murphy song is just fantastic. Like, come on, man.
It's kind of funny that the Irish president kind of looks like a leprechaun.
Think of Biden and the Irish prime minister.
Yes, who absolutely does look like he doesn't look like a leprechaun. He looks like one of the dwarfs from
Lord of the Rings.
From Lord of the Rings, from The Hobbit. Yeah, from Lord of the Rings. You'll know exactly which one I'm talking about in there. But I just thought that was that was a lot of fun. It was nice to see something that was just kind of fun and like upbeat, and everybody was like, "This rules." And he comes out the Dropkick Murphys.
Ireland being one of the few countries like Ukraine who actually are pro-American and like Ukraine and like Americans. So.
In general, right? Yeah.
In general, yeah.
Yeah, it's just lovely. Yeah. And somebody said, people are tweeting about whoever advised Biden to come out to shipping up to Boston, you're an absolute legend. Everybody, because that's the song that they played when he walked out, and it was so cool. I enjoyed it, especially after the miserable kind of oh God, what's Trump gonna say? He's gonna step in it. He's gonna be a jerk. He's gonna ask somebody why soldiers would give their lives.
Biden goes to Ireland. And he is, loved and embraced. And Trump goes to Scotland, where his mother is from, and he is universally reviled.
Giving the finger. And he gets, in New York, he had to give a deposition this week on the case. He was forced to give a deposition, so he came back. Noise going to New York a couple weeks ago now. He went again this week, and people were lined up to just boo him and say, "Get the hell out of New York," which is, you gotta see that as an honest contrast in circumstance, because and again, nobody in Delaware is booing Biden.
Yeah, and then to see him sitting down with Tuckums, and that interview where he says, "Oh well, when I spoke to Putin, he loves Ukraine. He really sees it as part of Russia." Yeah, you moron. That's part of the problem is that they see Ukraine as their territory when it's not.
Yeah, I sat down with OJ. He thinks Nicole is still his wife. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
At a certain point, how do you not? All right. How do you not see that?
Yeah.
I guess it's there's an obvious answer because you don't want to. There's a lot.
Well, you see Nazis everywhere.
We're out of time.
boom.
Thanks so much, Philip.
We
I
are.
appreciate you being where you are and being with us at the same time.
Thank you, everybody. Yay!
Absolutely. Check out Johnny Million on Twitch, twitch.tv/It's Johnny Million. And of course, you can subscribe at infotainmentwars.com or become a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/HalSparks. Help us out. Help us make it and rise up and do all the things because the election year is coming and I got to keep doing this. So we got to help us make it possible.
The
We'll see you next time.
counteroffensive Ukraine.
Thanks, Chicago. And scene.
We were
I
actually
saw-
very diligent this time, weren't we?
I know we are.
we like
We got
we
to
like
question
wrapped it
time.
up.
I got
We
58
wrapped
new
it up. Like,
subscribers.
it's not like suddenly like Chicago was suddenly not there, and we were we were good boys.
I don't know if you noticed, I built a whole other scene so that I could show the chat room the articles I'm talking about in some cases when we, when we deal with stories and whatnot. So, because specifically, so yeah.
Do we want to do a couple of more questions before a cat throws up again, or
save those for Wednesday because I have to take off.
we'll do it on Wednesday. All right, buddy.
A lot of prep. I'm going to be in LA, by the way, audience, chat room, everybody. I'm going to be in LA for the Monday shows. I've got a show that night at Flappers, and then very possibly Tuesday's show as well. But we'll see because I got meetings and big fancy Hollywood stuff that I'm trying to set up, and so and I'm trying to. I want to be like, they got to have a season 3 of The Last of Us or something. People got to grow their hair out in the future. Anyways, we'll figure it out. But
and I'll start putting up the stuff, the material that I collected in Zaporozhye. I'll be putting that out on a blog.
I will
and if
retweet
you
it,
run any,
spout it.
Yes, please, yes, thank you. And if you run any producers out there who want documentaries from Ukraine, you can be my advocate.
I'll bring it up. We'll make it happen. That's a good conversation for me to bring up in said meetings. Well, there's a lot going on. So
there you go, buddy.
Much love, Johnny.
Take
Million, we got to do this
Johnny.
soon. We got to do the guitar thing soon. We have to.
We have to. Thanks for letting me play today.
Of course. I love you guys.
Cool.
Come on.
Cool.
It's a good time.
I
All
missed
right. I'll
that.
see you guys later. Gotta go. Okay.
Yeah,
bye.
I'll play sometime when you're on. Phil.
I'll go back.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go back and check it out. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
And make
Good
him a
luck.
theme song.
Good luck, Al. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cheers.
Lovely. Good luck, Al.
Okay.
All right. Take care,
Cheers.
Johnny. All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you, chat room. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the super chats. We got, the show blazes by some days, and I'm sorry if we don't name check people specifically, but we appreciate it every single time, and I want you guys to know that. And thank you guys for subscribing on Twitch, for supporting the show the way you do. It's just heartwarming and lovely. And to all those, and you know who you are, who behind the scenes send little, like, you watch the show another time, like you're not watching right now, you're going to watch this tomorrow or Monday morning or wherever you are in the world, and you go, oh, here's $5, thanks. And you do that, and I want you to know, when I'm walking around and my watch goes ding, I'm like, aw. It's a great feeling. I feel like it just taps me on the shoulder and lets me know I've added something to the conversation, added something to your life and your well-being or something. That's what it feels like, and I want you to know that. Okay, gotta go. I gotta go. I'll see you later. Okay, I gotta go.